Hey guys, Chauncey Phillips here with my November 14th DVD update. I talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Like I always say, guys, if you enjoy these updates, definitely give the video a thumbs up. Leave me comments below what you guys saw, the titles I checked out in this update, and any future titles coming up that you guys would like me to review for future updates, and some of the things you guys have checked out recently. Now, the first one I got from Shout Factory Scream Factory line, and these are movies that I have been a fan of for years, and I've actually liked one of these films before was kind of considered like cool or known to like this movie. Like I actually liked this movie when it first came out. I used to always rent this as a kid, and this is before I knew about before the internet or any of that kind of stuff, before like the best worst movies or any of that kind of stuff. It's the collection of Troll and Troll 2. Now, Troll 2 has nothing to do with Troll 1 whatsoever. Troll 2 was an Italian-produced film in America, which basically someone sort of said, oh, those creatures were a little bit like trolls, so then they put Troll and called it Troll 2. Originally, I believe it was going to be called Goblin, but a lot of Italian productions did that when they would make kind of like their own weird sequels to things, or say it was a sequel to it. Even, Zombie 2 is considered, like, they call it technically a sequel to Dawn of the Dead. It isn't, but they say it is. They call it Zombie 2 because Dawn of the Dead in Italy was called Zombie. But Troll 1 is basically about this kid named Harry Potter. Yes, the original Harry Potter. That was the kid. And there's even, I remember, a whole kind of lawsuit thing about they took the name and from this movie. And I remember there was a whole lot of stuff about this I remember reading. But the movie's basically about this family that ends up moving into this new house, this new apartment complex. And this apartment complex, too, they also shot the same set, the movie Crawl Space with Klaus Kinski, because, Empire Pictures produces, and they used to always reuse the same sets. So if you've seen that movie, you've seen the same set that they use for Troll. But it's basically, though, this family that moves in. Immediately, the sister ends up getting taken by the troll, and the troll ends up masking himself as the sister and is going around in this apartment complex and basically turning people into gnomes and goblins and turning the building little by little into like the trolls and kind of like sanctuary where they live, and there's all kinds of freaky weird music like it's this very strange movie that I've always loved. Noah Hathaway plays the brother who's kind of noticing that there's something strange about his sister and kind of going around the place trying to figure out what's going on. I've always really loved the movie. It has on here too a making of with the director and the composer as well, and the theatrical trailer. But a really, really cool, fun fantasy film. But the second movie was the one that I used to always rent as a kid. Like I said, I discovered this movie before people were kind of talking about it later, and before they made the documentary, which is actually included in here. Best Worst Movie with Michael Paul Stephenson, the kid who plays Joshua, directed that years later. Kind of about the fandom of Troll and how it kind of had an impact on his life and things like that. In that one, though, it's about a family that goes to kind of like a family exchange kind of program when they go to stay at the other house in Neobog, and their family is supposed to stay in their house. Of course, they go there, and Joshua is the main kid, and is like the grandfather saying, you can't go there, there's something bad about this place, and there's something bad about the food. They eat the food, they're going to turn into the food for the goblins. It's such a strange movie, and it's one of those movies, too, with amazingly bad acting, but, it was such good bad acting, and, you couldn't imagine it if it had good acting. If this movie was, done with, totally different, I couldn't imagine it. And there's some amazing lines in this one, like, you're a genius, big sister, and him having to pee on the food. It's just such a strange, weird movie with bad effects, bad masks, bad everything, but that's what makes it so good. But like I said, when I first watched this as a kid, I didn't even pick up on that. I just saw this as kind of a cool, fun, ridiculous movie that I always loved. Like I said, I never saw it like that. I always just kind of saw it as just this movie I watched and rented all the time. I remember at the same time I was always renting The Willies. But it has on here, a new commentary track with George Hardy and Deborah Reed. But such a fun movie, a great double pack, definitely worth picking up for sure. The next one, this is one, I used to have a DVD of this, never had seen it. I remember it, and then after I finished it, I was like, maybe I watched this as a little kid on a tape when I used to tape stuff off of TV. Back before I was allowed to watch R-rated movies, I used to tape stuff, edit it off of TV. So I was kind of having a feeling like maybe I saw it on TV before. This movie is called Ghost Story. And it's a pretty cool movie. The lead in the movie is the guy who was from a number of different movies, but I always think of him from Body Double, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. He was the main guy in Body Double. He plays the son in this. It's basically about this group of these four old men who kind of always go and tell stories to each other, old creepy tales and stuff like that, sort of trying to scare each other. And the one son in the beginning of the movie, there's these two twins. The one son, something ends up happening. He ends up falling out of the penthouse building, window, his penthouse, window, and dies. This great sequence too of him falling off. It's crazy. Falling out of the penthouse right by the pool, and basically the brother, who has not seen the father in years and kind of doesn't get along with everything, ends up going back to the house. And there's this whole weird stuff going on with them kind of telling these stories and sort of finding out about telling the family about how he ended up knowing the brother's girlfriend and how he believed they were dating the same person, and this kind of about their life. And then the father and then the friends, the old men, kind of tell the son the story about how they knew this girl. And it's a very, very creepy movie. It's one of those kind of movies that could give you some bit of the frights, some of the bad dreams, kind of creepy movie. They don't make these kind of movies like this at all anymore. It's very, very old school, very creepy haunted house, kind of creepy tale movie. I really like this. It has on here a commentary with, the director, new interviews, vintage theatrical trailer, but I thought this was a very, very cool, creepy movie. And the next one from Shout Factory as well, Scream Factory line, is White of the Eye, which is one I had never seen before, never actually had even heard of this movie before. It's basically about this guy who's a TV repairman or stereo repairman, kind of installs, really, really, expensive kind of stuff. It's all set in, Arizona, in this kind of weird, canyon area, and there's always these kind of shots showing it, kind of wondering what it all means, because there's these weird aerial shots and stuff like that of it. It's a pretty creepy, weird movie. Cathy Moriarty, who is from But I'm a Cheerleader and Matinee, Neighbors, a bunch of different movies is in this movie. It's basically about these girls that are getting killed, and kind of the cops kind of investigating it, trying to figure out who it is, and they're kind of going after the repair guy because he has the truck, and they're believing that it's him, and kind of questioning him the whole thing. And it's kind of, is it him? Who is doing this, and who is the killer? That's essentially what it is. Like I said, it's a pretty creepy, weird movie that I feel like not a lot of people have seen. It has on here, though, new high-definition transfer, audio commentary, deleted scenes, interview with the Steadicam operator, and alternate credit sequence. Some really cool, too, weird kind of visual kind of stuff, too, with these filters and stuff like that to the image. But a really cool, out there, weird movie. Another one, this one I don't believe has ever been released on anything before, and this one is called Blood and Lace. This is a movie about this girl who ends up, her parents ended up dying, and she ends up going to this orphanage, and there's something really weird about the orphanage. The people who are at the head of it really want this girl here. You don't really know exactly why they're so insistent that she has to be here, and people are kind of getting killed off at this place little by little by this weird person wearing this mask with this hammer. It's a very creepy, old school kind of movie, and really weird kind of character actors and stuff in this movie. The one guy was in a couple of different other things, from some sitcoms and stuff like that, Mel and Alice, and the one was Uncle Leo on Seinfeld. But it's just a really, really strange, weird movie. Like I said, all set at this orphanage. Movie that I feel like has seldomly been, seen. Like I said, I don't think this has ever been released on anything before, at least not that I'm aware of. It has on here a commentary track with film historian, alternate opening title, and a theatrical trailer on there. But a really pretty cool, seldom seen slasher film. The next one from Scream Factory as well is a new movie called Bound for Vengeance, and I really like this movie. About this girl who is, the Richard Tyson, I believe, is who is the guy in this. The main guy, but he was from, Kindergarten Cop and a number of different movies. But he's like this bad guy who's kidnapped all these different women, and the one girl who he is kidnapped and tied up in his house ends up getting loose and basically, knocks him out and sort of runs out to get out, out of the place. And when she's leaving, she kind of first of all, she can't get out because she doesn't have keys to the car, doesn't know what she's going to do. Then starts to discovering that there's these pictures of all these other girls around the house. So she comes up with this thing that she's going to force him to take her to all the girls and kind of find them and let them free. And then they kind of go on this thing of her having him tied up, driving around from place to place, and going to try and let these girls go. But she kind of starts to discover that these girls are kind of like brainwashed and weird things going on with them, and things start to go pretty bad, and kind of like a whole underbelly of this whole big system of weird things going on with these girls and what this guy is doing, and there's like a whole big thing to it. It's actually a pretty cool movie and pretty well acted too. I thought that Richard Tyson did a really, really good job in this. I think this is one of the, like, at least from like the biggest roles I've seen him in a long time, because I usually see him in like small little kind of cameo parts and smaller parts in movies. He was in one Daniel Harris movie I saw recently, but this is a very cool, different movie, and I always like these kind of movies when it's too like kind of, you know, trying to save people and that kind of stuff, and a character piece movie. And I thought there were some pretty cool, weird characters in this as well. I like that a lot, though. The next one, I saw this one in theaters as well. This is the Owen Wilson, Lake Bell, Pierce Brosnan film, No Escape. I believe the director of this did As Above, So Below, and that one horror movie that really never got released, the Popipsky tapes or Popipsky tapes. It never really came to DVD or anything. I think it's been on like online and stuff like that. Maybe it's on you know, streaming things and stuff like that, but I don't think it ever actually had a physical copy. But I believe he directed that. This movie is called No Escape, and it's Owen Wilson and Lake Bell. Owen Wilson gets a job. I believe it was somewhere in and somewhere it was in Asia somewhere. And basically, though, he gets a job out there, and immediately when he gets there, he goes there like for the very first day, and he's staying in this really fancy hotel is where he's basically going to live, and his wife is kind of starting kind of settling in that she's stuck here, and she's going to have to basically just be staying in this hotel all the time and trying to figure out how to talk there because she doesn't know the language whatsoever. So it's going to be a total nightmare for her. Doesn't really want to do this, but she's like crying and depressed about this. But of course, there ends up being this huge kind of thing going on with kind of like a the people in the town are very angry about the group that Owen Wilson's is getting a job with, and they kind of revolt and start killing people, and it becomes a huge national thing there of all kinds of issues, and they all kind of on lockdown, and people all getting killed, and it's a very crazy, intense movie. And it's kind of like, how are they going to get out of here? And Pierce Brosnan is kind of helping them along, trying to help them survive and hiding them and things like that. I really like this. I thought this was very effective and very cool. Always like Lake Bell as well, but really, really like this movie. Has on here a commentary, deleted scenes, and behind-the-scenes gallery. This one's definitely worth checking out. The next one I just finished watching a few minutes ago. I've heard so much about this one. And, you know, sometimes when you hear a lot about a movie, you never know if it might be, like, overhyped or, you know, maybe you never know. And this one was great, and it really, really was good and definitely lives up to all the talk that I've heard about this movie. And it's a German film called Goodnight, Mommy, and it's about these two twins, and you see in the beginning of the movie, you see the kids kind of playing around outside, and you see a car coming back, and you find out, you know, that their mother has come back. She's had some kind of a surgery done, something has happened, her face is all bandaged up, and immediately when the kids notice the mother, there's something off with her. Something's very weird. They're kind of playing this one game, when you put the thing on your head, and they kind of guess what you are. And the mother is not guessing herself at one point. She's like, they give all these clues, and they, you know, kind of hinting that, you know, we're trying to talk about you. We're asking you, you know, we're talking about you. She's not guessing it. Very weird things are starting to happen in the house. She's starting to take pictures off the walls. Things are going missing. She's changing things around. She doesn't seem like herself at all. And it's kind of like, is this the mother? What is going on here? Why is things going on like this? And it's basically, though, about the kids, kind of, both of them kind of noticing things. Also, the mother is kind of she doesn't seem to like one of the boys for some reason. She's like, don't talk to him. She doesn't want to, she keeps on ignoring him, giving him all kinds of crap. There's just something weird going on. Why is she ignoring him? She's got some kind of a real problem with him. And it's basically, though, the kids are kind of become paranoid of her and scared to death of her, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But it's very, very cool, extremely creepy movie, and the town that they live in is very scary too, because it's like this like kind of German town in the middle of nowhere. That's kind of like kind of this like sort of real old timey feeling too, like, and they try and go off and I don't know. It's just very creepy, weird setting too. I really, really love this movie. Highly, highly recommend this movie. One of the top recommendations in this one. The other one, too, this one is another one, which I didn't know, because I heard a lot of good things about this movie and didn't know going into it if it was going to live up to it, and it did. This is from Image, and this is called A Christmas Horror Story. Now, there's been a lot of anthology movies recently. Anthology movies are kind of making a comeback. There's been a lot more recently. And this one is really, really good. And really, every segment of this was good. And I also like the way they tied it together. And this is A Christmas Horror Story. Really cool cover on this one as well. And it really lives up to the hype of this movie. And it's basically an anthology film, and it's not like typical where it's like one story and another story, another story. All the stories kind of connect. Like, it goes from one story to another story, then back to the other story, back. And I like that. I like that it's like kind of following 4 different things going on. One of them is about, Santa, and something has happened to the elves, and the elves have basically turned into some kind of a zombie-type creature, and Santa's stuck dealing with these elves. The other one is about a family that goes to cut down a Christmas tree, and when they end up leaving, the son gets lost. They bring the son back to the house. Something is strange about the son. He seems off. Another one is, with the Krampus, a family that goes to a Christmas gathering, and the one kid's a real turd and ends up knocking off this Krampus statue off the aunt's mantle, and she's like, "Oh, you gotta leave now. Things are bad. You cannot be here. You gotta anger Krampus," and of course, Krampus comes for the family. And the other one is about a group of these kids, which I actually love that one the best. I thought that one was actually pretty creepy. I can actually see all of these expanded into a feature, their own movie. But I really like that one with the kids who go down to their school because of this kid that ended up dying there. They end up going down to the basement of the school and kind of filming a little documentary kind of thing down there. And of course, they get locked down there, and then it's what ends up happening to them. Very, very effective, very cool horror movie. And I also, the outcomes to things too were very cool, and I've expected stuff too with this. But I would highly recommend this. William Shatner plays the radio host. They kind of cut back and forth to kind of talking and stuff like that. I really liked William Shatner. He was very cool, spread throughout the movie. But definitely check this out. It has on here Behind the Scenes of a Christmas Horror Story. But a cool, highly recommended anthology Christmas movie that really works. It's actually pretty creepy and is unexpected, some of the stuff too. Because I wasn't sure how I was feeling about the Santa story with the elves. And then I'm like, whoa. Then it got really cool when it kind of has what happens in it. That's all I'm going to say on it. But the next one from Arrow, this movie's called, Uli Lemmel's, Tenderness of Wolves, which is a different movie for Uli Lemmel, because the things that I've seen have been really different kind of tone of a movie. This is a really cool, but, the subject matter of this is really out there. It's the same subject matter of the killer, based on the true story of the killer in the movie M, which I remember watching in school. Always remember really liking that. I only ever seen that once. I need to watch that again, but a very creepy story. It's about this guy, though, who's basically a real shyster of a guy. He lives in this apartment, and he's always kind of doing inappropriate things and going around. The cops are always picking him up for kind of lewd acts and all these kind of bad things that he's doing, and weird stuff going on with him, and stealing and all kinds of bad stuff. So the cops basically kind of say to him, we can arrest you, or you can work for us as kind of an informant. And he kind of goes around to the train station at night and moves people on, but he also is going there and picking up young boys that he's bringing back to his house to sleep with them, and he's also doing, bad things that have been happening up there. The story, if you guys know, it's a real serial killer, and he's basically what he's done to these kids, and there's all this kind of stuff going on with him and the weird neighbors that are the kind of neighbors that live across the street, and they're very strange. They know about him, and they're kind of alright with all this stuff going on. They know that they're eating people that he's bringing to. It's a really twisted, weird movie. Like I said, too, the fact that a lot of this stuff was true, I don't know what was changed and stuff for the movie and stuff like that, but a really creepy, weird movie. It's a German film. Sometimes, with movies subtitles are hard to read. This one was not. I really got into this one. Like I said, though, the subject matter is pretty out there, but cool. Really great transfer on this one as well. Has on here, introduction with Uli Lemmel, number of different other features on this as well, but Really, really out there, weird movie. Definitely check this out. But like I said, the subject matter is out there, so just go into it knowing that. The next one is a spaghetti western, which is one I had never heard of, called I think it's Requisite, something like. I don't know how to pronounce it for sure. But it's basically, though, about this kid. There's like a big massacre that happens, and all the people are killed, and the kid's parents are killed. He ends up stumbling across this other family who end up taking him in, this really religious family, and something ends up happening later on. And the sister ends up running off, and he kind of goes off to try and find his sister, and he kind of ends up discovering that these things happen, then he has to kind of change his ways a bit and starts having to start using a gun and becoming violent and things like that, and kind of, taking revenge and stuff like that. It was kind of hard for me to get into this one a little bit, but what I'm going to talk mostly about, what I would say this movie was extremely colorful. You know what I mean? Like, I know but it really, it's like, some of the contrast, the something with the picture was amazingly colorful, like to the point of like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with the colors and everything. It was very strange. I had not seen too many movies. I think it must have been shot in like Technicolor or something like that, in that format where things were super, super colorful. Like an extremely colorful movie. Looks outstanding on Blu-ray. It's a 2K transfer on this. But I really like this one. Like I said, I couldn't totally get into this movie, but for certain things about it, I really did like. And like I said, it's a seldom seen, spaghetti western film. The next one from Sony, and this is the 20th anniversary collection, which I can't believe the first movie was 20 years old. And this is, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith in Bad Boys 1 and Bad Boys 2 on Blu-ray. Bad Boys 2, I believe, is the first time this one has ever been released on Blu-ray. The first one has come to Blu-ray before, but these are both, brand new 4K transfers of both these movies. The movies, though, are basically as Will Smith and Martin Lawrence as cops. The first movie, though, is basically they ended up having this big drug thing that they ended up finding all these drugs. And then these criminals have ended up going in there and stealing the drugs, and they kind of have to try and figure out how to get them back, because that was like one of their biggest scores. And it's also about this girl who's a witness who witnessed this murder of the girl that Will Smith has basically been seeing, and she ends up, calling in to kind of talk to the cops. She wants to talk to Will Smith. Will Smith's character isn't there, so she ends up talking to Martin Lawrence, and Martin Lawrence has to pretend to be Will Smith, and it's kind of like the charade of him pretending to be her, pretending to be Will Smith's character, and then the whole thing to kind of keep the thing going on because they need her testimony on what had happened. But it has on here, a number of different features, auto commentaries, on deleted scenes, but they're really, really cool movies. Always really like these movies. Have not seen these in years. I know, too, I believe they'll be doing part 3 of this as well soon. But like I said, this is the new 4K transfers, and both of these look great. The next one from Olive Films. This is one that I had never seen, did not know much about this movie at all. And it's a movie starring Harvey Keitel and Madonna and James Russo, and this is called Dangerous Game, and this has the rated and unrated versions. I watched this one last night. Really love this movie. It's not going to be for everybody. It's a very experimental movie. It's about Harvey Keitel making this movie, and the movie kind of cuts in and out of like these behind the scenes type things they film with like a VHS camera to give it like this behind the scenes kind of look, and then it's all the scenes of the actual movie. It's hard to explain it, like the stuff of Harvey Keitel and talking to Madonna's character in real life, and when they're not making the movie, is all kind of shot far back, not a lot of close-ups, and then the close-ups in the movie kind of filming more is actually done in the movie scenes. So it's like he's talking to her about about making this movie, but then it's very strange to explain it. But and when they're actually making the movie, though, the actor who's playing alongside Madonna is very, very out there and very method and stays in the character, but he can't do it he really can't act without, if he has to be doing drugs, he's doing drugs. If he has to be having sex in the scenes, he's like has to have sex in the scene. If he has to get violent, he actually really gets violent with Madonna, and it's very scary the way he takes it. That's essentially what the movie is, though, is between the real footage of behind the scenes. It's like I said, it's a strange out there movie, but I loved it. Like I really, really loved it. It's not going to be for everybody, but it was a really, really cool experimental movie. If you guys have watched it, let me know what you guys think of this one. The next one from MPI, IFC, is the Stanford Prison Experiment. I actually watched this one a while back on demand because I'm really interested in seeing this movie. A lot of people are in this movie. A lot of cast members. Ezra Miller was great in this movie. And this is, like I said, Stanford Prison Experiment, which is based on a true story about Stanford when they had this program where they would get students at the school and they kind of staged like a prison, and they kind of would have certain kids play prisoners and certain kids play the wardens and the cops and things like that. And they kind of had to stay within the scene, and they were kind of playing the roles, and things got really out of hand. It was supposed to go on for 2 weeks, but the whole thing was falling apart, and the people who were playing the cops were taking it to these extreme levels and letting the kind of ability of telling people what to do for the first time in their life to this degree get to their heads, and were being extremely violent and yelling at these kids. And it was a crazy movie, extremely well acted movie. And just to see the fact that this was real and this had all really happened, and just to see the level that these kids took it to and how bad things got. You don't definitely watch this movie, guys. This is a really cool movie. Has on here a commentary with the director, a featurette on the movie and the trailer, but really cool movie. The next one from Anchor Bay is a documentary, which I'm really interested in seeing this. I think it aired on TV a week or two ago as well. It's called The Hunting Ground. It's going to be on Blu-ray as well, on a burn-on-demand disc, I believe, but this is an actual press disc for the DVD, and this is called The Hunting Ground. It's a documentary about, it's really out there, sort of sad kind of subject matter, because it's what's really happening in these schools. It's about basically the kids that have gone to school and, in colleges, who have been sexually assaulted and rapes and things like that. They've gone on the school, and it's kind of talking to people who have happened to them, the victims and the schools and things like that. And it deals with like the cover-up about the schools. They don't want to let these kind of things get out there, and kind of sweeping it under the rug and kind of making it seem like the girls or the students were to blame for the things like that were happening to them. A really, really, it's a hard watch too, because like I said, this is all happening, these kind of things that are going on. But it's definitely something that I think is a documentary that's really worth watching too, just to see too the kind of stuff that can go on and does go on in college campuses. And there's a lot of these kind of things going on. Schools are not always that safe, and this is a really good thing too that shows you how things can be. Has on here though additional stories and Annie and Andrea answering your questions. Now the next one from Twilight Time, which is Screen Archives Twilight Timeline. These are all limited to 3,000 copies. Now this one's 5,000. And I think most of the other ones I believe are all 3, but this one's 5. This is John Carpenter's Vampires. So I had not seen this movie in a really, really long time. I totally kind of almost forgot about this movie. There's another movie with there's a vampire movie that I always kind of confused this with I can't remember. I think it was Bon Jovi. I never remember the name of it, but I always kind of confused those two movies for some reason. This movie though is basically about it was James Woods, who was like a vampire hunter with him and his crew of vampire hunters. They're going around kind of killing vampires and kind of trapping them and things like that. And then the one guy that they end up going to get ends up being like this terrible, like, bad vampire who's like the king of the vampires and things like that, who is kind of going after them. He ends up turning one of the prostitutes at the hotel that they're at, where they're kind of going and trapping these vampires, and it's kind of him coming after them and things like that. That's essentially what the movie is. But it has on here isolated score, commentary track with John Carpenter, the making of John Carpenter's Vampires, and theatrical trailer. But a cool vampire movie. The only thing I will say with this one is it's a little light on like the music. It has some music, but it's not as like much cool John Carpenter music as some of his other ones. The next one. This movie is kind of hard to explain because it kind of goes all over the place with different things going on, but it's essentially about this, murder case and trying to solve the murder case, and then this one guy who's like been like trapped in this place and like keeps having things cut off of him. It's a really weird movie. It has on here, Peter Cushing, Vincent Price, and Christopher Lee. This one's limited to 3,000 copies. Has on here isolated score, commentary track, interviews, and this one is called Scream and Scream Again. This is a limited edition as well. All of these have great transfers. Twilight Time always does a really great job on the transfer of these, but this is like a cool one too, to see all of them together in one movie. Christopher Lee, Vincent Price, Peter Cushing, like I said, and it kind of spread throughout the movie in this. The other one is Count Yorga, Vampire, and the sequel to this came out a month or so back from Shout Factory, and this is the first movie. The sequel, but it's kind of like their own movie because they similar, but they kind of, the second one was kind of like starting the story over again a little bit. But this is basically, though, about Count Yorga, who kind of always goes and like finds these women and things like that, and basically turns them into vampires and women that he becomes obsessed with and things like that. And he kind of goes as like a medium, and the people who end up coming to him, he ends up turning. They kind of, when they're leaving his house, something ends up happening. Kind of forget what ended up happening the next night, and the one's girlfriend is kind of changed, and something has happened. They believe that Count Yorga has turned her into a vampire. That's essentially what it is. They're just like really kind of cool, like kind of like hippie, like kind of vampire kind of take, because it's like you were set in like the early 70s, so they kind of have that like out there kind of hippie-ish kind of feel to it. That's what I think is kind of interesting, because it's a different kind of take on a vampire movie. It's not like the typical kind of vampire kind of vibe to us. It has on here isolated score, commentary track, talking to Robert Cordy, Rue Morgue interview, and an isolated score. I think this one has an isolated score as well. Yeah, this one as well. But a cool, weird one, though. And this one, I hadn't seen this one in a really long time. This is called Strange Invaders. And this is an alien film that's kind of done... kind of reminded me of Invaders from Mars, the Tobe Hooper one. But this is like a kind of a throwback to the 50s science fiction movies. But this one definitely takes it a little bit more kind of serious in tone. It's basically, though, about this one professor who's, looking for his ex-wife, who kind of goes to her old town and kind of has not been seen for a long time. The guy ends up going back there, and no one knows where his wife, no one's, they all say they don't know his wife. And the whole town is really like back in the past. It's almost like it's like the 60s or something there. It's like, or I think that's what it was, like real back in time looking. Things have like been kind of stuck in the same time. And he's going there, and people are really weird to him. He's like thinking that something strange is going on with this town. And that's essentially what it is as it's like an alien thing. There's some really pretty cool alien stuff in this movie. Has on here, though, as well, an isolated score, commentary track, but all really cool releases from Twilight, Times, Twilight Times, line. Like I said, this one is limited of 3,000 units as well. The next one, this is from, I think it's a new company to be putting on Blu-rays called The Film Detective, and these are all region free. And this is one is called, Bucket of Blood, which I've actually always been a fan of this movie, and it's, directed by Roger Corman, stars Dick Miller, and this is basically, though, about kind of like real beatniks. It's like this beatnik kind of bar. Dick Miller works there, and they're all doing like Free the Sound, the beats of the sun, the drum. It's all that kind of stuff, and Dick Miller works there as kind of the cleanup guy in this bar, and he really kind of wants to fit in with these people and kind of wants to do art as well, because there's a lot of artists there and art types doing things, making drawings and paintings and things like that. And he comes up with the idea that he wants to be a potter. Of course, make pottery and statues and things like that. Of course, he doesn't know how to do it at all, and he ends up accidentally killing his cat and then putting the cat into putting the clay around it and bringing it into the bar, and everybody likes it. And of course, it kind of escalates to him actually killing somebody and turning these. It's a great, great movie. Really love this movie. An amazing transfer on these. They did a really good job of these transfers, especially the transfer on the back, because this is one of those movies that's I believe it's been in the public domain, and you never know with things like that how it's going to look. And this is basically Vincent Price, and it's about. In the beginning of the movie, you see this guy who's ended up getting killed in this fire, and he has all this money. He's kind of having this scheme going on, but it's about these two people living in this house, this one woman and the kind of like the maid who kind of helps around the house, and kind of weird things start going on in the house, and people are kind of lurking around, the Bat Killer, who is the Bat Killer? The whole movie is kind of wondering who is the killer, is it Vincent Price? Is it this person? Is it that person? You don't really know who it is, and that's what it is. It's kind of a whodunit movie, but the transfer on this was amazing. Like, I couldn't believe how good this one looked. Really, really love this movie. A cool, weird one. The next one from Cinedigm is Krampus, the Christmas Devil, and there's been a lot of Krampus, Christmas kind of movies lately. There's the theatrical one coming out next month, which I look forward to. Definitely want to see that one. I know it is PG-13 though, so I'm wondering how it's going to be though. But this one is called Krampus, the Christmas Devil. This is basically, though, about, the Krampus devil. In the beginning of the movie, you see this kid, the Krampus is taking this kid, to the pond, but the kid ends up, to drown the kid in the pond. The kid ends up getting out. Years later, though, the guy who's, this happened to is a cop, and there's these strange things start happening to kids, and these kids start going missing, and it's kind of him investigating them and kind of trying to figure out who was doing this and what's going on to these kids, and, of course, he doesn't know at the time it's Krampus, and eventually, him and his friends go out and try and find this killer. They stumbling upon him, and it ends up being basically what ends up happening to them. Bill Oberst Jr. is in this as well. Really good performance from him in this movie. It's a pretty cool movie. Not my favorite movie of all time or anything like that, but some pretty cool stuff that happens in this one. The next one from E1 is the Redwood Massacre, and this one I really liked. I was really liking this movie from Scotland. And it's called, like I said, the Redwood Massacre. And it's basically about a group of these friends who are going out to the woods for just sort of like a trip to go out there, and they're kind of all meeting up there. The one friend has not shown up yet, and you see in the beginning of the movie, though, there's like this guy in this kind of mask, going and basically killing people, and there's some crazy, real gory deaths in this. But of course, though, they're telling each other these tales and stuff like that about this killer, and of course, though, then they end up out there with this killer, and it's kind of what ends up happening to them. But I would really recommend this movie. I had a really fun time with this movie. There's some funny stuff, like some weird stuff happened, like some really crazy deaths. It definitely has a real throwback kind of like slasher film. It was kind of almost like, it wasn't like Cannibal Campout exactly, but it kind of reminded me of that just a little bit, just with what was going on and some of the dialogue and stuff with it too. But I would definitely check that one out. Next one from Exquisite Pictures, Vinegar Syndrome's new line, is called Catch My Soul, which is like a kind of a crazy out there musical movie. And this line, they do a really good job on cleaning movies up. The transfers and things like that are really good. Everything that Vinegar Syndrome has done on Blu-ray, and especially this line as well, has been really great transfers on these movies. This is basically about like a traveling preacher who ends up just coming across this kind of weird commune of people. He ends up falling in love with this one girl there. But then the one guy who's like the leader of this cult doesn't like the relationship and kind of wants to make him and drive him out of the town and get rid of him. That's essentially what it is, but it's all kind of done like in a musical, and there's some musical sequences in this. Like, oh, there's times, and it's real 70s kind of mix of kind of like a Wicker Man kind of vibe with some of the music and stuff like that. But it has on here, though, the making of Catch My Soul, interviews, True Soul, the work of Conrad L. Hall, theatrical trailers, reversible cover art on this as well. But I really like this one. Like I said, I really dig the stuff that this line is putting out, especially the one that they put out before, American Dreamer, with Dennis Hopper, was a great documentary. The next one from Cinema Epoch, I believe that's how you say it. This was a strange Eric Roberts movie. And the director of this did the movie Bloody Birthday. It's his first movie in like 20-something years. The movie's got this really weird vibe. It's almost like a movie that they would play in the movie Stay Tuned on the TV, on like channel like 6150. It's got this like really weird vibe. And it's got these vibes too, like they just kind of like set the camera up, go with it, like very little coverage and stuff like that. But it's Eric Roberts playing this, vampire host, and he's like a really strange vampire kind of character. And he's kind of vampire hosting this reality show, these people who go in there and have to spend the night with this kind of statue that they believe has like caused these murders. And you see this kind of devil kind of creature going, and like kind of like, and like with the background, he's like green screened in like a cheap way, like that the whole time. It's really strange. But you see him, and the kids are in there, and the one guy's like doing this country accent, like, well, I never said this before, and he's like really like a real ass. And I know it's a strange movie, and like they're getting killed off by this guy, and they're trapped in there, and if they win, they get this money. But it's such a strange movie. Like, it's strange to a level that I can't even explain strange. Especially, like, the effects in this and everything is so weird. But I liked it because it was so weird. But going to this knowing this is one of the weirdest things you're going to see in a long time. especially like the setups with the shots and stuff. The next one from MVD is Forbidden Zone, directed by Richard Elfman, Danny Elfman's brother, and this is a totally out there movie. It stars, Hervé, I can never say his last name right, but who is from, Boss, the plane, from the Fantasy Island show. I always really loved him, and the one who plays the queen in this movie is the one who did the voice in Chipmunk Adventure. She's a great character actress. Passed away a couple of years back, but she was in some really cool, out there, weird movies. And this is basically, though, about this family that's it's all kind of played by like adults are playing kids and really old people playing the kids and like these strange characters. It's kind of like pre-Pee-wee's Playhouse a little bit. It's got that kind of vibe to it. You can tell why Danny Elfman went on to do like the music and things like that for Pee-wee, because it's got the same kind of really weird vibe. It's all in black and white. There's also the colorized version on here as well, but she kind of goes down, this girl, into this kingdom with the one from Fantasy Island is the king, and these weird stuff that goes on, and kind of frog mask wearing people, and all these weird stuff. It's a really cool, weird musical movie. It has on here a commentary track, a look into the Forbidden Zone, new intros, outtakes, lead scenes. I like this a lot. It's a really weird one. Like I said, I'd never watched this one before. The next one from Mill Creek, it's a complete series Blu-ray with some very cool cover. It's kind of like put this unique kind of thing on the cover. This is the complete series of That 70s Show, which is a really good price for them as well. It has on here, though, all the, like I said, all the seasons on Blu-ray. And here's what they look like, though. Season 1, Season 2, and they're all just like this. And then the discs in here are all on 2 different discs for each one, but they all look really good. Like I said, I hopefully down the line Mill Creek puts out some of the other shows and stuff like that on Blu-ray, because I don't know if you could put some of those ones, if they were, depending on what they were shot on, I don't know. I would love if Mill Creek could get access to Malcolm in the Middle, but I know they'd have to change all the music, but it would be cool to see some of those kind of things come to Blu-ray, because they really do look a lot better. It's a great set, though, especially if you're a fan of the show. And the last ones I got from Intervision is The Badger Game, which is basically about this girl whose boyfriend, she thinks she's got this perfect boyfriend, and he ends up finding out that he's married and is cheating on her, and she basically wants to get revenge. So her and her brother and one of the other girls that she knew who was sleeping with the boyfriend as well, because the guy was sleeping around with all these different women, come up with this plan of kind of kidnapping him and kind of holding him for ransom for money, because he has all this money, and kind of scaring him into giving this money. Of course, though, when they do this, they kind of discover that they don't really know what they're doing very well, and they're not really cut out for doing these kind of things, and they get the whole plan of how they're going to get him back to the house, but things start to get worse and worse and worse as they go along. The one girl from this was from the movie Bad Kids Go to Hell, which is a pretty cool movie. It has on here, though, a commentary track, and then, some interviews as well at the premiere for this movie. And the last one is from Intervision as well. This is Chris Alexander's Queen of Blood. This is the sequel to Blood for Irana, which I reviewed a long time ago, a couple of years back. And it actually has that movie on here as well as a feature. And this is basically, though, done really much like the Gene Roland kind of movies and like the vampire movies of the 70s and stuff like that. And it's all a real silent film. Org of Skinny Puppies in this movie. He was in that movie Scream Park, which I really liked a lot. And it's basically, though, the woman, the vampire, ends up coming out of this lake back to life, going around in the Old West, and she's kind of going around killing people and kind of wreaking havoc around the thing. It's some really cool shots and stuff like that. It's really long shots with kind of really cool, creepy, atmospheric music and things like that. That's essentially what the movie is, though. Looks really good, though. Has on here gore, gaffs, directing org, introductions, deleted scenes, commentary track, Q&A, but this is a pretty cool, out there, weird throwback to those kind of Gene Roland kind of movies. Anyway, though, guys, that's all for this DVD Blu-ray update. Thanks again for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!